Very good morning to one and all here.
Good morning.
Uh, Good morning, dear delegates and invitees and the paper presenters. I am extremely happy and feel proud and then feel honored to introduce the chairman of this today's session, Dr. Aziz Prakash Pandey. I would, because of the time constraint, I will read out a small biodata. Please don't underestimate him. And please pardon me if I did any mistake. Whatever is available from his note, I have taken from the organizers. Dr. Aziz Prakash Pandey ji completed his MTech in geophysics from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, and PhD in seismology from NGRI, Osmania University, Hyderabad. He has been engaged actively in the research fields of seismology since 1999. Currently, he is involved in earthquake monitoring using National Seismological Network at National Center for Seismology under Ministry of Earth Sciences. Sir, I welcome you on this occasion for this session as a chair
Thank you so much.
on
Thank you.
behalf of organizing committee and on behalf of the delegates and the special invitees. Once again, welcome to this session to and request you to chair the session.
Thank you so much.
Uh, and it is my pleasure to introduce our co-chair, Dr. Bablu Chaudhary. He has completed PhD from Kyushu University, Japan. At present, he is assistant professor in National Institute of Karnataka, Surathkal. His research interests include soil dynamics, disaster prevention, and mitigation, and he has lot of credentials in the form of publications, and is very actively involved in teaching research at NITK Surathkal. Sir, on behalf of the organizing committee and on behalf of the delegates and on behalf of the uh, invitees, I give a warm welcome to this session. Okay, and I request you to co-chair this session. Now, I will hand over the session platform to the chair and co-chair. Sir, over to you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So, this is our second session. Uh, uh, so, first of all, I would like to welcome our special lecturer, Professor Vishwas A. Sawant sir from IIT Roorkee, and other presenters who are part of this session, including Dr. Majid and others who have yet to join this, and my co-chair, Dr. Bablu Chaudhary. It's a really pleasure occasion for us to have a good interaction and discussion on the very vital aspects of geotechnical engineering, that is liquefaction, which is very hazardous phenomenon once an earthquake happens in an area. So it's a really very good, perhaps it's going to a very good session and very informative, because I am seeing there is good modeling work as well as there are some reinforcement kind of things, how to reduce this geotechnical potential. And similarly, there are soil classifications are also going to be built, and stress strain behavior of the soil characteristics is going to be built. So it's really going to be a very informative session, hopefully, and I wish for the same. So before we start our session, I would like to just introduce our special lecture by Professor Vishwas A. Sawant sir. So please, Professor Vishwas is currently working with Civil Engineering Department at Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. He obtained PhD in Geotechnical Engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay in 1998. MTech in Offshore Engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay in 1993. BE in Civil Engineering from Sardar Patel College of Engineering, Mumbai in 1990. He is a life member of Indian Society of Hydraulics, Indian Geotechnical Society, Indian Geotechnical Society, Mumbai chapter, Indian Society of Earthquake Technology, and Indian Society for Construction Materials and Structures. His areas of research include liquefaction and numerical modeling of liquefaction, dynamic analysis of rigid pavements, pile foundations, laterally loaded piles in horizontal and sloping ground. With such a brief introduction, there will be many more things to be spoken about. The credit to Professor Sawant, sir. However, I am stopping here, and with these few words, I would like to welcome Professor Sawant to deliver his special lecture on a topic numerical modeling of liquefaction.
So thanks a lot. First of all, thank you, Professor Reddy, Professor Pandey, and Dr. Bablu Chaudhary for this nice introduction and giving me opportunity to share my views. I welcome all the participants to the conference, and let me try to share my slides now. Okay. Thanks a lot. So today we are going to discuss about liquefaction phenomena, and it was as long before noticed in the year 373 BC during an earthquake in the Greece, and then we have this number of liquefaction phenomena noticed in the history from Dhubri in 1932. Then most famous is our Niigata earthquake in 1964, from where the people actually started working on the phenomena of liquefaction. Okay, so then we have this Burma in 1988, then the Kobe in 1995, Bhuj 2001, and so on. Okay, so what is liquefaction here actually? Basically, it is the loss of strength in the soil, because in the case of dynamic shear loading, the soil, if loose sand is there, it will try to compact it by expelling the water out from the pores. But because there is no drainage is available because of the time constraint, time is very short. So in that case, it will lead up in the buildup of pore pressure. And when the pore pressure is building up, effective stress will be reduced as it is equal to sigma minus u, and effective stress will be reduced to zero. And in that case, if it is a cohesionless soil, it will lose its complete strength and its shear strength will become zero. And in that case, it will become like a liquid. Okay. So this is the mechanism of liquefaction. I am just quickly rushing through this one. There are three conditions are required. One, sand should be in saturated condition. It should be loose sand deposit, and there must be rapid shearing. It is very rarely, very frequently observed near the seashore and the lakes and in the river beds, because all three conditions exist in the case of these particular locations. Okay. Now, what is happening in liquefaction? In liquefaction, there will be sand boils will be there. There will be subsidence of the ground and inundation of the area because of rejected water. There will be differential settlements. The building or structures supporting on it may overturn because of differential settlements, and possibility of sinking of buildings is also there. So I can just show you some of the pictures, very famous pictures during Niigata earthquake. There was tilting of the buildings. There was a collapse of the breach. Then there was a collapse of the dam in the San Fernando earthquake in 1971. This is a picture in the Kobe earthquake. There was the breach was collapsed because of the failure of the pile foundation. This was again the location again from the Kobe earthquake here. Okay, this is in the Nepal earthquake, the roads where there was considerable subsidence. Okay, what is happening in liquefaction? There are two phenomena. One is there's sudden loss of the strength and soil cannot stand under its own weight also. Then one more possibility, there may be considerable lateral movement or the flow of the soil. Okay, we also call it as cyclic mobility. Now the people after Niigata earthquake, they started working on this phenomena right from Seed and Lee in 1966, and a well-known seed is this approach which we normally commonly use to find out liquefaction potential. Okay, so this approach is based on we try to find out the stress induced during the earthquake, and that we compare with the resistance of the soil. We also call it as cyclic shear stress and cyclic resistance. Okay, so this cyclic shear stress or cyclic shear stress ratio, which or resistance ratio for which the soil can withstand, that is calculated by this particular equation, that is tau h by sigma v in the field at a given relative density will be calculated from this ratio of cyclic stress ratio of sigma d by 2 sigma 3 in the triaxial at 50% relative density, and then v proportionate it with respect to density, that is dr by 50, and then we multiply it by reduction factor, which varies from 0.47 to 0.7. Okay, and then we can, if it is tau average that is greater than tau h, it will be liquefying like that. Okay, and we can find out zone of liquefaction. Now we'll go to the modeling aspect, because whatever the approach suggested by the earlier was for a phenomenon where there is a semi-infinite medium, there was no weightage was given for the drainage path, which is an important factor in the distribution of pore pressure. Okay, and to consider this importance of drainage path, we can model it numerically, so that if we are planning for various mitigation measures, then the effect of drainage path can be accounted. That is the main purpose of modeling liquefaction in numerically. Okay, so we will discuss about 3 models. One is Finn model, and then there will be UBC sand model used in the Plaxis 3D, and there will be a Pastor-Zinckenrich model where we are use it for a coupled analysis. Okay, now Finn model. What is the Finn model? In the Finn model, we are using effective stress based principle, and it was first developed by Martin et al. In 1975, later on modified by Finn and Bryan. Okay, so model is based on the computation of volumetric strain. Basically, it computes volumetric strain at every cycle. Okay, and because the drainage is not permitted, there will be equivalent development of pore pressure. That is the concept in the Finn approach. Okay, we can see that these are the basic requirement for modeling the shear stiffness of the ground, but we are not going to cover it here, because our main concentration on the assessment of pore pressure here. Okay, so pore pressure can be calculated by, there are the constitutive laws which are used to calculate stiffness of the soil. Okay, but now I am going to the important factor. So what we do, we for every cycle we try to calculate the corresponding volume change and volumetric increment for a given cyclic shear strain. Okay, so this was the principle behind it. So I can see here, so this is now this is the calculation of pore pressure by the Finn model. Okay, here the delta epsilon Vd is the increment in the volume for a given volumetric shear strain, and that can be found out from equation 14. Okay, we can see that it is for a given value of cyclic shear strain gamma, we can find out the possible volumetric change delta epsilon Vd. But since it is not possible, it will be converted to equivalent pore pressure. You have to multiply it by this rebound modulus of sand, and when you multiply it by rebound modulus of sand, that is, you can see from equation 13, we can get the excess pore pressure that will be developed during that particular cycle. So we are going on updating our corresponding the volumetric strain and corresponding pore pressure at each cycle. That is the way the Finn model works. Okay, these are the formulas. We call it as this is uncoupled approach. Okay, then in this case we also try to solve at the same time dissipation of the pore pressure per solving equation 19 in finite difference method. Okay, and then we can club these two together for the accumulation and dissipation of pore pressure using the equations 19 also. Okay, and the obviously basic stress equation was solved by using this equation for stress equilibrium conditions in terms of variable x here, where x dot and x double dot are the velocities and displacements of the model, continuum model. Okay, now next approach is the partially coupled approach. This is used in Plaxis software. Here you are using a UBC 3D PLM model developed in the Plaxis. Okay, so in this case, what we have in our study, what we have done is we have modeled an embankment resting on a sandy strata here. Okay, in this case, we have started computed the pore pressure development and response for 3 models. One is the embankment with the plain soil. Then second, that we also call it as benchmark model. Then we tried 2 mitigation measures. We tried to impose sheet piles on the toe of the both sides of the embankment. And third was we have given a gravelly column at the toe on the both sides of the embankment. Okay, and then we have compared the response from all the 3 studies. So soil and embankments were modeled using 10-node tetrahedral elements in the Plaxis. Sheet pile was modeled using 6-node elements, and again soil column using the same as soil embankment. Okay, so we have applied El Centro earthquake motion at the base, and then we try to find out the response, and we compare the response for all three models here. Okay, so these are the basic equations for this UBC TLM model here. Okay, the first one, the yield function, where you use Moore Coulomb criteria based yield function. Then these are the K and G equivalent bulk modulus and shear modulus at every stage of constitutive modeling can be calculated from the ratio of P by PA, where P is the mean effective stress at that particular time instant on that particular point. Okay, and P is atmospheric pressure. So depending on that, we always calculate the value of bulk modulus and G, and we know that our stiffness matrix, constitutive matrix, depends upon K plus 4G by 3, K minus 2G by 3, and so on. Okay. Then there is a plastic flow vector which will be modeled by equivalent Drucker-Prager formulation. It's G is equal to Q minus P 6 sin psi by 3 minus sin psi, the size angle of dilatancy. So here we use the Drucker-Prager formulation to model the plastic flow vector here. Then there is a hardening rule given by the next equation. Okay, and then there is a densification rule given in the next equation. And the last is important is calculation of excess pore pressure, that is given by bulk modulus of the water multiplied by volumetric strain increment delta epsilon V. Okay, so with this formulation was applied on this particular model here, we monitored the displacements and pore pressure at the given locations here, A, B, C, D, that is they are a little bit away, 7.5 meter away from the toe. But points E, F, G, H are right below the toe, and the point I is at the center, along below the center line. Okay. Now with this, maybe we can go to the next slide. We can see this effect of modeling part. These are the various parameters taken for the soil domain here, and then the parameters of UBC model are given in the table 2. Okay. So this can be worked out from conducting cyclic triaxial test if data is not available. Now these are the comparison of pore pressure with these three models here. Okay, I can just show the point A. Point A is 7.5 meter away from the toe on the ground actually, and at this point A, the pore pressure was 12.38 for kPa for benchmark model. But when we work out with the sheet pile, in that case pore pressure was 9 kPa only. But when we provide gravel column here, in that case it was very effective and pore pressure was reduced to 3.05. You can see on all the figures also whenever we are providing this gravel column, the pore pressures are very less. That is the BM plus soil column. You can see that there are almost chances of liquefaction are not there. Okay, but in some cases the pore pressure due to particularly the points below sheet pile. Okay, pore pressure in the model with sheet pile a little bit higher than the plain model, that is the benchmark model. The condition is that the sheet piles are effective in reducing the displacement, but they also become a barrier in the drainage path, and because of that pore pressure will be rise a little bit. Okay, and now we go to the coupled approach which we have developed here. The Fortran program was developed in the plane strain condition. We model a domain with infinite boundary conditions. Okay, so we have used here a 8-4 node mixed element. That means elements has got 8 nodes, and all the 8 nodes having 2 degrees of freedom, that is displacement in vertical and horizontal direction. But all the 4 corner nodes also has pore pressure degrees of freedom. Okay, constitutive model was Pachter-Zienkiewicz Mark III model, which can capture the phenomena of buildup of pore pressure at every cycle. Okay. Then the dynamic analysis will be done by time history analysis using Newmark beta method. Okay, and we also model infinite boundary by introducing infinite elements as the boundaries on the left hand side, right hand side, the bottom boundary, and again at the corner also we have this 3 node mixed element. Again 5-4 means 5 nodes for displacement degrees of freedom, and out of which 4 nodes are also having a pore pressure degrees of freedom. Now, in the coupled approach, what we do is we we try to formulate both the equations, that is equations on total stress equilibrium as given in the first equation here. Okay, so this is the first equation in terms of total stresses. Please note that always it should be in terms of total stress, that is sigma means sigma dash plus u. Okay, And then we apply variational approach to this equation, and we can get ultimately, after applying the variational approach, we can get the equation in this here. That is mass matrix into accelerations plus stiffness matrix into displacements minus Q into P is equal to force vector. Okay, that depends upon the body forces and traction forces here. Okay, so in this case, important term is Q other than normal terms. We have a Q matrix which correlates coupling matrix between the two fates. Okay, we can see M is the mass matrix, K is the stiffness matrix, Q is the coupling matrix of the element which are linked with normal B matrix with the shape functions of pore pressures. Okay, and then the body force factor. You know that all the equations for M and K are and Fu are regular, but there is differences only in the coupling matrix in the equation 1. Now again, because we are having extra degrees of freedom in terms of pore pressure, we need a fluid continuity equation. How this fluid continuity equation is there and how it depends upon the surrounding stress condition, how it is coupled with the stress conditions. So for that purpose, we use this fluid continuity equation, and then we use Darcy's law where velocity is equal to permeability into gradient. And again, we apply the variational approach here, and we get this equation in terms of equation 2 here. Okay. Here G is dynamic coupling matrix, Q is the same matrix, coupling matrix. Okay, but here only it will be in the form of transpose here. Okay. Then we have S and H matrix. So we can see that G is dynamic coupling matrix of the element. H is the matrix, permeability matrix. It depends upon BP transpose K BP. S is the compressibility matrix, depends upon the bulk modulus of the soil water domain. Okay, and FP is the force vector for fluid phase. Okay, then we have used Newmark beta method for integration in the time domain. Okay, and the values of beta and alpha were 0.5 and 0.25 respectively. Now for pore pressure also we can use the same one, Newmark beta method. Okay, for integration. And once we apply the Newmark beta method, the equations 1 and 2 were changed in the following form for the time series analysis. Okay. Now here we have used a Pasteur's-Zinckenwicz model. If we don't apply any nonlinear model, there will not be any development of accumulation of pore pressure if it is linear behavior. Okay. So we must model a constitutive model will be there which can account for the accumulation of the pore pressure. So here increment relationships are like this. Delta sigma is dep into delta epsilon strength increment, where elastoplastic stiffness tensor can be calculated by using this equation here. And in this case, this NGLU and N, they are the plastic flow vector and loading direction respectively. Okay, where stress tendency and bounding surface are given by your equation here G and in terms of G and F. Okay, and then we need to find out the flow vectors and the loading vectors as dF by sigma, dQ by d sigma.
Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. We are left out with 5 more minutes.
Okay, I'm just winding up. Okay, I'm maybe last 3-4 slides only. Okay,
Thanks.
I'm going with the reasonable speed. Okay, so we need to find out this del G by del sigma and del F by del sigma as flow vector and loading vector, and that can be done by using these expressions over here. Okay, now we require hardening parameter here that can be calculated here from these expressions. Okay, and once we do that, then of course we can calculate the value of DEP, which we can use as a tangential modulus in the next stress increment. This was our model. We model a soil of width around 24 meter and depth around 13 meter. Below 13 meter there was a gravelly layer, and on both the boundaries there were infinite elements to model the infinite domain. Then there was a transmitting boundary in between the two. The purpose of transmitting boundary is that the waves reflected from the domain should not reflect back into the domain. That is the main purpose of introducing transmitting boundary. You can see here our mixed node elements here. Okay, so then we just compare the displacements and the pore pressure calculated by our for this earthquake motion here. Okay, we also seen the effect of 3 soil models. G is equal to 6,000 kPa, G equal to 10,000, and G equal to 15,000. As obviously from the figures A and B, which shows vertical and lateral displacement, we can see effect of G is very clear, and it is also, you can always understood that for it is decreasing with the increase in the displacements. Now we can see for the pore pressure, If you just see that, if you compare all the figures C, D, E, and F at the depth point, these are at the point below the center line at 2-meter depth, 4-meter depth, 6-meter depth, and 10-meter depth. Along center line, because it is the point with the longest drainage path, the pore pressures are maximum. So we choose these particular points. Okay. So from the figure, we can see that at a 2-meter depth, the excess pore pressure is in the range of around 100 plus. Same thing is for 6G is equal to 6,000. Even for 4,000 also, it is above around 100. And for 6-meter, it is around again 100. And for 10-meter, it is 60. Okay, that means, but for other two models, that is G equal to 10 and G equal to 15, the pore pressures are reasonably in the range of maybe around 25 for 4-meter, 6-meter, and 10-meter. That means that for the other two modulus, it will not liquefy below beyond 2-meter. Only, it can only maybe at the most 2-meter, but below 2-meter, it will not liquefy. That is the effect of shear modulus. This is also clear that when our soil is, because it depends upon load sharing mechanism. If soil is more stiff, more load is taken by the soil particles and less will be transferred to the fluid phase. Okay, that will be leading to less development of pore pressure. Okay, and this that's the way we can summarize now here. So we have developed here 3 approaches based on, one is uncoupled approach, then partially coupled, and then one more is full coupled analysis. Okay, based on the Finn model, UBC model, and then Pasternak-Zinckenrich Mark III model. Coupled approach is almost a rational approach which can also take into account the drainage path between the two particles, because in the case of the first approach, uncoupled approach, it is independent of drainage path. It is just giving you empirical equations to calculate the pore pressure, and it does not account anything for the development of pore pressure depending upon the drainage path. Okay. Obviously, drainage path is longer, development of pore pressure will be higher, and it will also take longer time to dissipate, and that can be modeled effectively only in the case of coupled or partially coupled approach. Okay, so that is from my side. I am opening the session for QAs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Sawant, for giving such a lucid lecture on numerical modeling. I would like to see if somebody has raised any question in the chat box so that that can be answered by Professor Sawant, sir. But I am finding no one has raised perhaps any queries. So anybody, if wants to share any comment or anything.
Yes, sir.
Thank
you very much, sir. The lecture was really very informative and interactive, and it is very useful, especially for the people who are working on soil dynamics. So, sir, liquefaction, at what water pressure liquefaction you observe, sir?
So we compare this with this vertical effective stress, means let's say we can say maybe roughly we can say density of submerged density of soil around, let us say 10 kPa. Then we can see that maybe at 2-meter depth it will be around 20 kPa, and what we are getting more than that. So obviously it will liquefy. But as we are going maybe beyond 6-meter and so, liquefaction was not there. That is maybe because of there was a drainage layer below the 13-meter. And effect of drainage layer was observed in that particular case. Okay, so when in that case our pore pressure was in the range of 60s for 6,000 meter, 6,000 kPa shear modulus. For the other two, it was always less than that. So you can see that at maybe at 10-meter, even though it was pore pressure was maybe hardly around 60 kPa only, and in that case effective stress will be around 100 kPa. Okay, so it is less than that, so it will not liquefy.
Yes,
that will give you because it is close to drainage layer.
Mm-hmm. So can you, in your photo figure, schematic diagram, can you show me where did you use the seed pile and sand drainage, sand column?
Okay. I will.
So that it will be a little more clear.
Okay. It was below the toe actually.
So you have used 2 rows of seed piles, I think.
Yeah, 2 rows of seed piles. Both of them were below the toe.
From I think from top.
Yeah, it was below
ground
the
level.
Great, yeah. Actually, sheet piles are helpful in restricting the lateral movement, because there is a possibility of lateral movement below the toe, and that we can control by sheet pile.
Actually, we have also used seat pile for offshore pile foundation
Okay,
of
okay.
some offshore structure, and for liquefaction also we have gone through. Okay, so sand column is here
Yeah, yeah.
at the bottom.
Sand gravel column is here, yeah. At the same location, yeah.
The same. So on the condition of seat pile, liquefaction was mitigated, or any comments, sir?
Not exactly, because at some locations, maybe only at the point A, pore pressure were less as compared to the benchmark model. But for all the other points, their pore pressure was a little bit higher actually. At the points just below the sheet pile, not only maybe at other points at E and G, we found that pore pressure were slightly higher than the plain model.
Okay.
But displacements were less. Obviously, they were less,
Yeah.
and that's.
So, sir, where is the main liquefaction pocket here? Just below the near the toe or below the crest?
Below the toe, actually, yeah. It was below the toe.
Below the toe. Okay. Because in seat pile, we also find same thing. It was somehow it was reduced, but not very much. Then we have used perforated seat pile.
Okay.
In Japan, they have using some perforation along the seat pile. So that will be help, especially for drainage path and in the case of liquefaction. So both the purpose, I think, a later displacement can be also controlled, and somehow for materials like this. Nice, sir. It's very informative. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So, anyone else in the session would like to have any clarification or any comment?
I think there is a question in the chat box, sir.
Yeah, one question.
Let me see. Please, is it visible to you, Dr.
Yeah.
Please ask.
What Mr. Tanmay has asked, what was the EPPR ratio, effective for water pressure ratio, I think?
Yeah.
Maybe you may be asking about RU, maybe. I think so. So it was greater than 1 at shallow depth, but as we are going deeper and deeper, closer to drainage path, it will reduce. It will be less than 1. Okay. Obviously, with high shear modulus also, it will be less than 1.
Okay. So before going to close this talk, I have a small clarification.
Yes, sir.
Professor Sawant, sir, please tell me this. You said that what is called this gravel pile will reduce this what is called this liquefaction potential. Mm-hmm. So up to what depth it is possible? Because the liquefaction may occur to the deeper depths also, to the 6 meter and maybe somewhere close to that. So it's possible to create such kind of what is called this.
It depends upon the actually not only the height. Actually, it depends upon the drainage path basically. Because in this case, I have modeled that there was a free drainage layer at the bottom, 13 meter below. Okay. So you have to take your drainage path close to that, what you can say, the drainage layer.
Okay. It's a gravel means artificially, artificially you have to create gravels there.
Yeah.
So such a great depth, 6 meters, 7 meters, even 10 meters. Mm-hmm. Is it practically done?
Actually, this was done here. Maybe the one problem here is that actually I have referred from paper only, but they have done only for 6 meters.
Right. Okay. Thank you, sir. Yeah. There are few more.
It was experimental as well as numerical studies, right, sir?
Yeah. No, ours is only numerical only, but we have taken the data from one of the paper only. They have done it on the embankment actually, one particular.
There is a couple of questions quickly we can answer. Dr. H.S. Mandal has asked if the liquefaction occurred between the depth beyond 10 meter, but your study shows above 10 meter only. Same thing I think he's asking.
Yeah. Because there was drainage layer again at 13 meters, so it will not be occur at 10 meter because there is a drainage layer nearby, so it won't occur. If I am assuming that also as an undrained layer, In that case, that is also possible.
Right. And there is by Tanmay. Tanmay is asking, please specify yield surface equation and what type of hardening was used, isotropic or kinematic?
It was hardening was in this case for which model? The third model was kinematic, and for second model it was isotropic.
Okay, nice. Sir, last question perhaps. This is last question of the session, is this talk. How Dr. H.S. Mandal has asked the question, how is this model be useful for general surface manifestation study? What is the time required to get soil liquefied just after passing the earthquake? What is the time required to get soil liquefied just after passing the earthquake? I think
it depends. It depends upon the magnitude also. It is not. It is relative actually. Basically, how much is the acceleration level here? But we can see from the graphs also maybe in this for this particular Kobe earthquake. You can see in this case maybe around 15 seconds liquefaction time for liquefaction around 15 seconds here.
okay.
Okay.
So with this, I think time also getting faster.
I think he is asking, sir, liquefied just after passing the earthquake. I think he is asking general, not during after earthquake. How much after time? Yeah.
Yeah, it is just from initial commencement of the earthquake. In this case, Kobe earthquake, it just require only 15 seconds, around 15 to 16 seconds. I think it may be around 16.
After passing the seismic wave, is it not? After passing the seismic wave, the site, it took 15 16 seconds perhaps. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, that's the answer. So with the round of applause, I think we should switch over to the next presenter. And we thank Professor Samant for giving such a beautiful, very informative lecture on modeling, and he corroborated also with the physical phenomenon in Kobe and other places. So with this, let us thank Professor Samant for giving a good lecture.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us and giving a very informative lecture.
Yes.
Very innovative topic, liquefaction. Thank you, sir.